the brave there are to ride the unrideable road, to love branches from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star. Don't matter how hopeless, don't matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march in hell for an heavenly cause. And I know if I only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I lay to my rest. And the world will be better for peace, that one man stood and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable
Einstein. 1,000 times a day, I remind myself that my material and spiritual life depend on the fatigue of other men, living and dead, and that I must work to give in equal measure that which I have received and continue to receive. Albert Einstein. In 1987, one of the most important orthopedists of the city of Chicago directed a study on the value of chiropractic care in 2 hospitals where he was on the staff. It's worth pointing out that this professor not only had a degree in medicine, a specialization in orthopedics, but also a PhD. He made a clinical comparison of the medical orthopedic wards of 2 hospitals where patients with low back ailments were treated. One of the hospitals incorporated chiropractic care with its medical care, the other did not. These observations were made by the leading medical orthopedist, Dr. Per Freytag. Results? The hospital incorporating chiropractic care had patients whose in-hospital stay averaged 5 to 7 days, whereas the average stay for patients in the hospital not providing chiropractic care averaged 2 weeks. Hence, the hospital using chiropractic care was sending patients home and back to work 7 to 9 days earlier. Medical expenses for hospital care in America are not less than $500 per day, so the savings were between $3,500 and $4,500 per person, which came out of the pocket of the patient or his insurance company, and that money ultimately comes from the patient through his insurance costs. Dr. Freytag also noted that chiropractic care was bringing comfort to women in their 3rd trimester of pregnancy, reducing their need for painkillers. This also supports the findings of the Henderson Report during the Second World War. Dr. Freytag's study is from 1987.
dottore Henderson nella seconda guerra mondiale, questo invece 1987. Nel 1986 di ufficio governativo degli Stati Uniti dell'America nel campo della salute pubblica.
In 1986, the United States Office of Public Health concluded after an extensive 13-year study that 2/3 of over-the-counter drugs do not fulfill the promoter's claim. In fact, the producers of these medicines spend more on advertising than they do on research, according to testimony given to the United States Congress.
Paul is simply an instrument. He teaches you to develop your health awareness, what it means to be well and to be sick, so that each of you can become, I don't mean your own doctor, but aware of your body, of your energies, and have the ability of using your body and the infinite capacity that life itself has placed inside you.
Di poter utilizzare al meglio questa nostra macchina e quello che ci sta dentro.
Professional formation. How did that tree get so big without medicine? Everyone talks about lymphatic drainage as if it was something that was very easy to understand. It ought to be, and I'm going to explain it to you, and when I explain it, you'll feel surprised and disappointed to have been lied to before. First of all, we need to understand that the circulatory system is composed primarily of the heart, which pumps the blood around the body. The blood which has been nourished and oxygenated, pumped everywhere, obviously with the help of the lungs, which provide oxygen, and a good digestion, which provides other useful substances. The system of the arteries carries these useful substances from the heart to all parts of the body. The veins complete the circuit and carry it all back to the heart. Now, let's imagine that I get a cut with some poisonous substance on my hand, for example. The body doesn't want that poison to get into the veins and go straight back to the heart, or to the brain, or the lungs, or the eyes. And so there's a parallel system known as the lymphatic system. Now, the lymphatic system should be like a deposit of money in the bank, which is never touched throughout your life. It's a reserve which is able to make your whole arm swell up if needed, as the immune system defends the heart from these poisons. But what really happens in everyday, non-traumatic circumstances? People eat badly, and the fermented, putrefied foods fill up the system. They smoke, and the body is not designed to eliminate smoke, just as it's not designed for putrefaction, not designed to eliminate at the rate it is filled. People abuse medicines year after year without treating the real cause of the illness. And the same thing happens with alcohol. The body is not built to deal with alcohol, and so the lymphatic system fills up. If and when it is emptied, the body returns to the organic and muscular performance that it had before. So that at a therapeutic level, when a person who has had his lymphatic system blocked has it unblocked, they feel an incredible sense of release. In fact, when we're talking about diet and we insist on a lot of water, 1 liter for every 15 kilos or 30 pounds, it's simply because the system has been subjected to abuse and it needs to be cleaned out if it's ever going to work properly again. So, to get things in the proper perspective, first there's the neurological transmission, then breathing, then digestion, then there's the elimination of poisons, and so lymphatic drainage is in the 4th category. Be aware, all of you who have undergone a lymphatic drainage of any type without changing your diet, without removing the cause of the problem. You've been cheated. It's just a trick, one of the worst in the field of natural medicine. Next time we'll talk about the meaning of the term biological. My first patient, myself.
Quando avevo 21 anni, avevo appena finito la laurea in scienze biologiche e ho vinto un'audizione come musicista.
When I was 21, I had just completed my degree in biology, and I had won an audition as a musician. And so for the first time in my life, I was away from home 50 weeks a year. The idea of going around looking for an allergist never occurred to me, because I had never seen any results anyway. New places, new friends, new music, and new responsibilities. I had heard the wonderful idea of eating without taking the life of other living beings, or at least other animals, so I became a vegetarian, and like I'm afraid a lot of people, doing it my own way. I got everything wrong. I ate anything that wasn't meat, all together at all times of the day, and I simply became an intestinal gas factory. I had good intentions, but I didn't know the rules. It's not enough to avoid eating meat to help the body. The body needs carbohydrates and proteins separately. It needs fruit away from meals instead of eating all of them together. When we decide to avoid animal proteins, which is not the biggest health problem in itself, we can eat legumes and nuts. Of course, there are different levels of vegetarianism. Some people say that you can eat dairy products, which have a rather high fat content, or only eggs, or non-fertilized eggs, or fish. As I said, there are different levels. But the basic rules are always the same. Carbohydrates and proteins shouldn't be put together. Fruit should be eaten on an empty stomach. And the body always needs 1 liter of water for every 15 kilos or 30 pounds, or fruit juice or vegetable broth every day. And the rules for proteins are the same whether you're a vegetarian or a carnivore. Next time, we'll talk about the first time I was given a chiropractic adjustment. Homework. Number 1, don't eat butter or oil that has been fried or heated. Number 2, fruit should only be eaten on an empty stomach. Number 3, proteins and carbohydrates should always be separated. Number 4, if you do not feel well in any way, don't eat proteins until later. Number 5, don't eat when you are angry, tired, or unhappy. Number 6, don't eat immediately before sleeping. Number 7, drink 4 liters of water per day, per weight approximately 1 liter for every 15 kilos or 30 pounds, on an empty stomach or 3 hours after the main meals, adding between 30 and 100 grams of honey per liter, and if you like, lemon juice. This is not for diabetics. Number 8, keep wrapped ice packs on the abdomen to the right and left of the navel for 6 to 24 hours a day, not if you're pregnant. Ice packs must be so well wrapped that no cold is felt. Number 9, decongesting massage with weights from 1/2 hour to 2 hours a day. Homework.
Vegetarianismo per convinzioni morali, per gusto, per prova.
Vegetarianism has a lot to offer, whether you take it up out of moral conviction, for health, beauty, world, or personal economics, or just curiosity. I promise not to make a moral stance here. I'll just explain how to do it if you want. If the idea frightens you, hang on for 2 minutes and we'll move on to another topic, okay? There's nothing to be afraid of. Some highly spiritually evolved peoples have eaten meat, and some equally spiritually evolved peoples have been vegetarians. I'll just say this again about vegetarianism. It's not enough to not eat meat to satisfy the body. It always needs water, fruit, vegetables, cereals, legumes, and nuts and seeds. Now, the body has no big trouble combining proteins and carbohydrates if they are all vegetable. but separate is always easier. The most interesting sources of protein from our point of view are the legumes, seeds, and nuts. A handful of nuts is as difficult to digest as a steak. We need to be careful not to do ourselves a lot of harm with the excuse that we're vegetarians and we can eat anything else we like. I'm not a great fan of dairy products personally. For taste, yes. For health, no. Other people have different points of view. I'll just tell you what a colleague of mine who grew up on a farm said to me. Quote, "You people must be crazy. When an animal, any animal, has stopped taking its mother's milk, that's it. And the idea of giving a cat milk in a saucer is just something out of the cartoons. It'll give your cat diarrhea because that milk is meant for calves." End quote. So, if you want to clean up your body and eat fruit or whole cereals for breakfast, and for lunch and supper a combination of vegetables and legumes or nuts, not both together, or whole grain cereals, vegetables, and salad, you can live very well indeed. Your blood will become really clean, and you'll feel a wonderful interior clarity and a sense of limitless potential. I did it for many years, and I almost always still do. It's a great way to live, okay? Next time we'll talk about diet and training. Now I see clearly. The aim of this program and of this special interview is to make you realize that we need a strategy that is not only intuitive, but also external, to help us keep a balanced outlook on the path we need to follow.
Sì, questo direi che è fondamentale. Soprattutto, cioè, bisogna pensare che esiste, come dicevamo anche prima quando si stava parlando tra di noi, esiste una struttura.
What Paul is saying is fundamental. Above all, we need to think in terms of the politics of power, because the healthcare system is a big business. It's a multinational corporation.
Sono le case farmaceutiche. Voi sapete che quasi un 15-20, se non forse di più, 20% delle malattie dell'uomo.
This corporation is the source of profit for many, above all for the pharmaceutical companies.
Se voi ci pensate è pazzesco questo, cioè abbiamo delle persone che si ammalano perché prendono le medicine. Ma voi avete messo.
You need to know that at least 20% of man's diseases are iatrogenic. That is, they're caused by taking medicines.
Poi leggete la composizione e poi in fondo avete una pappardella lunga così sulle controindicazioni. Allora,
this is quite absurd. There are people that get sick because they take medicine.
Maggiori delle capacità curative di quella medicina. Fate questa perché.
Have you ever tried to read the dosage and the contraindications of the illustrative leaflets of the medicines? You will realize immediately that the contraindications are greater than the curative properties of the medicine.
Voi andate al supermercato, comprate una scatola di fagioli, una scatola di. Guardate dentro, non c'è solo scritto fagioli, ma c'è scritto colorante, additivo, conservante.
You must also always be aware of the composition of the products that you eat.
Lo stesso ritornando alle medicine.
In the supermarket, for example, you do not only buy canned beans, because inside there are also additives and preservatives that are harmful. The same is true for the medicines.
E mi ricordo quando ero bambino, il medico di campagna diceva la più grande medicina è il cibo, date da mangiare, dice quando sta male il primo.
Before modern times, the country doctor would advise his patients, the best medicine is the food you eat, and when you don't feel well, the best medicine is fasting or no food.
Capacità terapeutica, no? E quindi il recupero del nostro organismo. Quindi mi ricordo che mia nonna, quando io stavo male, i bambini stavano male, non si chiamava il pediatra, perché non c'era il pediatra.
In ancient Greece, Paracelsus, a great physician, treated fasting as therapy.
Diceva, il bambino sta male, non deve mangiare, oppure il nonno sta male, anziano, chiunque sta male, digiuno, brodino, acqua, acqua calda.
My grandmother, when we children were sick, didn't call the pediatrician because there wasn't one.
Queste erano cose che il medico diceva. Mezzo limone spremuto dentro, un po' d'acqua calda. Sono cose semplici, non c'è bisogno di andare, uno ha un mal di testa o sta male e si prende una pastiglia.
The family doctor suggested fasting and drinking hot water.
La natura, e cioè
The physician always suggested natural
il
therapies.
nostro mondo, circostanze, ci viene in aiuto. Purtroppo oggi la natura è contaminata, c'è questo da dire. E quindi c'è un grosso problema che, così come i nostri pensieri...
Today, unfortunately, nature is contaminated, as are our
i cibi
thoughts.
sono inquinati. Allora, purtroppo bisognerebbe alimentarci con degli alimenti di carattere biologico. E se voi vi alimentate con i
We therefore should feed ourselves with biologically grown foods, which help your organism and help the development of biological agriculture and its economy, which is clean.
E la seconda cosa buona, aiutate l'agricoltura biologica a svilupparsi e quindi aiutate in qualche modo anche altre persone e aiutate un'economia pulita a svilupparsi.
5 anni dopo le prestigiose indagini fatte al Yale University e al Johns Hopkins,
25 years after the prestigious studies done at Yale University and at Johns Hopkins,
ha fatto un'indagine
considered by many the most important medical school in the United States, Harvard University, carried out a study. It was supervised by Professor Howard Hyatt, who is rector of the Department of Public Health. This 5-year study was performed at the request of the state of New York at a cost of $3.1 million. It became the largest investigation into medical malpractice ever made in the United States. And the conclusion was that medical negligence in 1984 alone was responsible for 7,000 deaths in hospitals, as well as trauma for 99,000 patients, causing costs of nearly $900 million. And that's in New York State alone. Imagine the figures if we had taken the entire country into consideration. As I said before, 25 years after the investigations at Yale and Johns Hopkins, things are only getting worse.
Yale e Johns Hopkins, le cose stanno solo peggiorando. L'Associazione Medico Americano ha notato che negli anni 80 ci sono stato fatto 250.
No one less important than the American Medical Association noted that in the 1980s, 250 back operations were performed for every 100,000 inhabitants in the state of Utah. Now, that was between 4 and 5 times as many back operations as were performed anywhere in the entire United States, and 25 times as many operations as performed in England. It makes you wonder whether all the people who had suffered from backache had suddenly gone to live in Utah. It really doesn't seem likely to me. In reality, we're looking at a scandalously large number of operations using a method which causes unnecessary traumas and deaths for purely economic reasons.
Paul è semplicemente uno strumento che cerca di sviluppare.
Paul is simply an instrument. He teaches you to develop your health awareness, what it means to be well and to be sick, so that each of you can become, I don't mean your own doctor, but aware of your body, of your energies, and have the ability of using your body and the infinite capacity that life itself has placed inside you.
Capacità di poter utilizzare al meglio questa nostra macchina e quello che ci sta dentro.
Professional formation. How did that tree get so big without medicine?
Quando studiavo scienza biologica,
When I studied biology at high school, I was fascinated by the mathematical precision necessary to do laboratory experiments and the intellectual challenge to reconstruct in the laboratory the classic studies of the first pioneers of science. Science has traditionally made great use of the laboratory, putting all ideas to the test. I studied biology in Philadelphia at Temple University in the year they opened a new biology department with computers, an electron microscope, and modern, well-equipped laboratories for all classes. It was a very rigorous and stimulating intellectual experience where I studied 8 hours a day for 4 years. When I got my degree, I had never heard anyone mention chiropractic, for which there's a political reason, which I'll explain later. When I went to the Palmer College of Chiropractic, the word biological took on a whole new meaning for me. It meant that by looking at the world as if I were a journalist, an observer, with great detachment and patience, everything that was logical for life could be called biological. For example, when you as a patient say, quote, "Why am I ill? Why do I have a fever, an itch, dermatitis, menstrual problems, or whatever," end quote, the reply is, it's logical for the body to demonstrate and manifest that you are on the wrong track. You may be on the wrong track for reasons of your own, and I for my own reasons, but the body's reaction is biological. When we remove the errors, or, for example, adjust the spine, it's physiologically inevitable that the body will reacquire its correct track. In fact, in chiropractic, illness is referred to as the absence of well-being. And every time we feel bad, there is a reason. It's the responsibility of chiropractors, patients of all kinds, doctors of all kinds, to understand exactly what this relationship of cause and effect is, and go straight to the cause and not to the symptoms. This requires a much higher level of mental clarity. 100 years ago, before we had all these clinics and specialists and doctors and medicines and chiropractors, everyone was responsible for looking after their own health, their own family, in order to survive. Wasn't that more logical? The message is that whatever is biological is that which is logical for life. Next time, we'll talk about the art, science, and philosophy of chiropractic. My first patient, myself. It's a great pleasure for me to tell you about the first time I received an adjustment of the spine from a chiropractor who worked and studied in the oldest chiropractic school in the world. Let's just go back a bit first. I had been playing my trombone from Toronto to Miami when I was 21, up to the age of 23 and a half. Then I enrolled in the oldest chiropractic school in the world, where the new students became patients of the student doctors who were 3 years ahead of them. These student doctors ran x-rays, neurological and orthopedic analysis, blood and urine tests. They checked the spine, and then the magic moment came. After having already completed 550 hours in the exacting laboratories of the biomechanics of the spine and chiropractic adjusting techniques, the manual adjustment by the chiropractor under the supervision of the faculty was delivered to put the vertebra in the correct position in order to facilitate the brain's communication with the body. Chiropractors say, quote, "The power that created the body heals the body," end quote. The cure comes from within by releasing the complete vital capacity of the innate or inborn intelligence and allowing its unobstructed neural transmission through its previously compromised spinal passages. Frank Sabatino, my student doctor, had in front of him my body, which had suffered from nausea in the womb, the anesthetic for the operation to take out my tonsils, 15 years of injections and antihistamines for allergies, and a lifetime of wrong food. He specifically positioned my body, and with an old technique called toggle recoil, he put my cervical spine in its original position. All I can say is that going back home, I seemed to be walking on air. It was the first time in my life that my brain enjoyed its genetic and anatomic position with my body. Next time, I'll tell you about how Frank Sabatino taught me how to eat. Homework. Number 1, don't eat butter or oil that has been fried or heated. Number 2, fruit should only be eaten on an empty stomach. Number 3, proteins and carbohydrates should always be separated. Number 4, if you do not feel well in any way, don't eat proteins until later. Number 5, don't eat when you are angry, tired, or unhappy. Number 6, don't eat immediately before sleeping. Number 7, drink 4 liters of water per day, per weight approximately 1 liter for every 15 kilos or 30 pounds, on an empty stomach or 3 hours after the main meals, adding between 30 and 100 grams of honey per liter, and if you like, lemon juice. This is not for diabetics. Number 8, keep wrapped ice packs on the abdomen to the right and left of the navel for 6 to 24 hours a day, not if you're pregnant. Ice packs must be so well wrapped that no cold is felt. Number 9, decongesting massage with weights from 1/2 hour to 2 hours a day.
Homework.
Cambiamenti di pesi e la dieta non è tanto complicata come sembrerebbe. Il motivo per la quale è complicato di solito è perché
Changing weight with a diet is not as complicated as it might seem. The reason why it often becomes complicated is that we try to get going on a program of weight reduction while the body is not physiologically efficient. The body knows exactly the ranges of weight which are genetically designed. It's not so much a matter of raising or lowering our weight as simply respecting our body and letting it do everything itself. Let's remember what we said about the correct position of the vertebral column for neurological transmission and the balanced free movement of the diaphragm. If we want to change weight and the neural transmission and the diaphragm are blocked, we might as well forget it. The same is true for the intestines and kidneys. We have to choose our food intelligently, and above all, not overload. It's useless to say, quote, I put on 3 kilos of muscle, end quote, and our friends say, yes, it's all stomach. The stomach should always be like that of a greyhound, empty, getting ready for the moment when it will digest the next food to arrive. It's not a storage closet. By emptying and decongesting the stomach, intestines, and kidneys with ice packs, the deep massages, and water and honey, the body will be much stronger. If we think we look too thin, it means that previously we had a lot of intestinal congestion and consequently general swelling. Our own muscles don't disappear detoxifying. Not everyone finds this fact easy to accept psychologically, but athletes know that the weight and development of their muscles requires training, not just eating. The first thing to do is to detoxify the body, and then to begin training. I've had the pleasure of working with Olympic wrestlers, and they are excellent people to work with because they are used to fasting all the time. We'll talk in the final episodes about partial and total fasts. Let me just say that they were used to training at one weight and competing at a lower weight. So as soon as they were in condition, they stopped eating until they got down to their fighting weights. The difference between them at their normal and fighting weights, if they are detoxified, lies almost entirely in the amount of food in their intestines. It is wonderful to be perfectly in control of our weight, because in moments of stress, a lighter weight is a great defense. Next time we'll talk about partial fasts. The trouble is that nowadays people have great difficulty in differentiating between what's really educational and what's just propaganda. The aim of this program is to give you the ability to know yourselves. You see, all healthcare educators insist that the suppression of symptoms is highly dangerous. We need to know why the body is reacting, because the body is always right. If it hurts, that's the sum of our errors, of an overload which we need to learn to recognize, compensate, and eliminate.
Paul has talked about something that for me is fundamental, and that's awareness.
I grandi maestri spirituali che sono incarnati sulla Terra dicono che l'uomo oggi, lo stadio, la gran massa di miliardi di persone incarnate su questo pianeta sono dei sonnambuli.
The greatest spiritual masters claim that most of the people on earth are sleepwalkers. Certainly they're right, because if they are enlightened, which means reawakened, it's obvious that the others are sleeping. So I'm a sleepwalker in comparison to spiritually awakened masters.
Che è un risvegliato, un illuminato. E il primo grande insegnamento che ogni maestro spirituale, orientale o occidentale, vi dirà, è quello di essere soprattutto nella vostra vita, a cercare di sviluppare una qualità.
The first teaching that the spiritual master, Western or Eastern, gives is to develop in our life one quality, not 1,000, and that is awareness.
Cosa vuol dire? Come siete consapevoli? Sì. Perché in genere uno si arrabbia, come si dice noi, si lascia prendere dall'ira e poi magari pesta uno, lo prende a schiaffi.
They say,
poi arriva
do you want to beat somebody up? Okay, but be aware of it.
Ma cosa ho fatto? Ero fuori di...
Usually people are consumed with rage, and when they have calmed down they say, my God, what have I done? I was out of my mind.
Essere fuori da noi, essere fuori di testa, oppure si dice ma quello lì è fuori di testa. Queste frasi che sembrano frasi fatte in realtà hanno una loro ragione di essere. Essere fuori di sé, essere fuori di testa significa non essere consapevoli.
To be out of one's mind may seem to be an idiomatic phrase, but it means not to be aware.
Non ci rendiamo conto. Vi faccio un esempio. Non so quanti di voi siano dei fumatori accaniti. Io dico sempre, rivolgo questa domanda, perché fumi?
Lack of awareness makes people do things that really deep down they do not want to do.
Il piacere è un qualche cosa che tu te ne rendi conto se hai consapevolezza. Anche mangiare un piatto di spaghetti con le alici è un piacere, ma se io mentre mangio questo piatto di spaghetti parlo
For instance, smoking is called a pleasure, but it really is not. Otherwise, it should be an aware action.
Assaggia quello che mangi.
But anyone who smokes 40 cigarettes a day can't be aware of each puff. This is a habit which is very different from awareness.
Accende una, parla con un telefono, fabbrica, e alla fine della giornata ha fumato 40 sigarette. Ma quanta consapevolezza ha messo in queste 40 sigarette? Credo 0. Piacere? 0. Quindi cos'è? È un'abitudine.
Awareness, the masters teach us, is the understanding, moment by moment, of what we are doing in every aspect of our lives.
Concentrati e fumatela tutta. Vedrai che alla quarta sigaretta...
In this manner, we become responsible for the quality of our lives and our actions and their consequences.
Capire esattamente che tipo di vita, cosa facciamo, capire i nostri errori, che cosa stiamo facendo, e questo vale per tutta la vita, come vale per ogni cosa della nostra vita e vale anche per la presa di coscienza delle nostre
Paul is simply an instrument.
malattie.
He teaches you to develop your health awareness, what it means to be well and to be sick, so that each of you can become, I don't mean your own doctor, but aware of your body, of your energies, and have the ability of using your body and the infinite capacity that life itself has placed inside you.
Diventi a sua volta, non dico medico di se stesso, ma comunque consapevole del proprio corpo, delle proprie energie, della propria capacità di poter utilizzare al meglio questa nostra macchina e quello che ci sta dentro.